Tampa Mayor Jane Castor.
And I'm St. Petersburg Mayor Rick Kriseman.
We are working day and night to keep our residents informed and safe, but we're also working together in an unprecedented fashion.
COVID-19 knows no boundaries. It doesn't stop at the water's edge. Its impact on one region in Florida is a threat to all of Florida, to every Floridian.
And that's why we need you to continue practicing common sense, heed the guidance of experts, as well as the directives of our respective cities. This is a serious public health emergency, and no one is immune.
Like mayors throughout America, Jane and I are committed to simply doing the right thing and protecting public health and safety. This isn't about politics. It's about our community. And now more than ever, we need to come together as one nation, one state, one Tampa Bay.
We appreciate our region's efforts to date and urge you to continue to stay inside unless you're in need of essential services or fresh air. The actions we take today will save lives tomorrow. Tampa Bay, we can do this together, even if we have to be apart for a little while. Thank you, and God bless. All right, hello Tampa. Thank you so much for tuning in again for our afternoon update. Have an incredible guest here with us, Mayor Rick Kriseman from right across the bay, very good friend. So we are going to talk to him about what's going on in St. Petersburg and some of the similarities and some of the differences that we have. But first, I want to start with an update on the number of cases we have. Right now, currently in Hillsborough County, we have 971 cases. We have 19 deaths, which is the same number as the last program that we had on Friday. So that's good news. Bad news is that 19 people have lost their lives. And as I say, every program, there's an individual behind that number, behind each of those numbers, and there's loved ones behind that individual as well. So we have to do everything that we can to reduce the number of cases and also the number of deaths associated. In Florida, 26,660 positive cases with 789 deaths. Now, I'll give you an update on One Tampa. And just so you know, I'm sure everybody knows, Mayor Kriseman actually launched a Fighting Chance program prior to the city of Tampa launching our One Tampa. And he's going to tell us all about that and how successful that has been. So for One Tampa, we are looking to help individuals and small businesses with those needs. As I always say, it's the food and shelter. And so we're looking at the shelter aspect, helping with 1 month's rent or mortgage and utilities as well. Individuals that live within the city of Tampa and have lost their job or had their wages significantly decreased because of the virus. Those are the individuals that qualified. We went live with that particular program on Friday at noon, and we had 4,500 people waiting for that noon kickoff. At one point, we had 613 calls a second into that. So it just shows the magnitude of the need in our communities. We anticipated that we would have it open for a week. Our goal was to help between 2,000 and 2,500 citizens, which would be $4 million. We had to close down the application process by mid-afternoon on Saturday. So we are going to hold back 250 applications. Those individuals that didn't have the ability to get in online or to call through the crisis center and get to our helpline, we're going to allow you to mail in those applications for relief. The second phase of it is going to be for our small businesses. And those small businesses have to be located in a low income census tract, and or a CRA, community revitalization area. And you can, on the application, you can type in the address of your business and it will tell you if you fall within one of those locations. We are going to spend the first 48 hours. That program will be launched at noon on Tuesday. We're going to spend the first 48 hours coaching through that application process so that we can give our undivided attention to that process and ensure that we're helping as many people as we can. Our goal is to help 800 small businesses, and again, that will be to the tune of $4 million. So that aspirational goal of $8 million is $2 million from some of the HUD and CDBG funding that we have that can be used for rent and mortgage. And then we're looking for the CRA board to vote to allow us to use interest on some of the CRA accounts. And for those of you who aren't familiar, the CRA is a geographic area, impoverished geographic area of the city, and all the tax dollars raised in that location go back into that area. So we're looking to be able to use $2 million from the interest on those accounts throughout the city. And then we are going to use $2 million from our emergency fund, usually used for recovery from hurricanes, to match up to $2 million in donations. And we've had some great response from our community. I know Mayor Kriseman has too. We had the Bucks, the Lightning, and the Rays all step up and donate $100,000 each. So that was absolutely wonderful. And to learn about One Tampa, you can go to onetampa.org. So very important. I appreciate everybody staying home. I know it's frustrating, but again, you realize the value in that. The two elements that are really going to help us flatten this curve, reduce the number of cases, is staying a 6-foot physical distance from each other, taking those simple steps, hygiene steps, washing hands and everything else. But the other really big aspect, in my personal opinion, is the wearing of face covering whenever you're in close proximity to others. And we are going to roll out an announcement, hopefully later this evening or first thing tomorrow morning, about a number of organizations within the city of Tampa that are now requiring all of their team members to wear face coverings. And they are encouraging anybody who visits those locations to wear face covering as well. So I do believe that that's going to be a part of our new normal. And we're having a lot of talk about opening up the economy. Again, that's a concern for all mayors, is first and foremost the health and well-being of our citizens, but then the economy and getting back on our feet. And I really think that the wearing of the facial coverings will allow us, that coupled with the antibody testing, will allow us to really start to open up our community quicker than anything else will, without a doubt. So please, please, please do what you can to stay at home. We have not hit the peak in our curve yet, but by all indications, all modeling, the steps that we have all taken have really helped reduce the number of positive cases. And that means we've saved lives. And really, there isn't anything more important than that. So you can't forget about our dance party tonight, 6 o'clock, our partnership with iHeartRadio. I love seeing the pictures and the videos. You can tune in to 93.3 FLZ, Mix 100.7, Beat 95.7 The Beat, Rumba 106.5, a 98 Rock or US 103.5. They play the same song at 6 o'clock, and you got to get out there and dance like nobody's watching. Mayor Rick Kriseman is going to dance this evening. There's absolutely no doubt about that. He's going to send us a picture of video. I know he's going to say, yeah, about the time you dance is about the time I dance. So as I said, Rick Kriseman is my guest today. He needs no introduction, but I'm going to do it anyway. He has been the mayor of St. Petersburg since 2014. He's in his second term, and he served in the state legislature also, and as a city council member in St. Petersburg. He earned his BS in broadcasting from the University of Florida and a JD from Stetson University College of Law. And he has lived in Florida since 1972. So thank you, and welcome here today. So Mayor, how about you tell us about your Fighting Chance program and how you started it and what the parameters are. And also, add in there, if you don't mind, how difficult it is to put a program. I heard you the other day say that your team was up until 2 in the morning putting the fine touches. And I'm sure you're the same as I am. When I say we are going to do this, I always tell everybody that means you. And the same thing with my team. I mean, they worked night and day for a couple of weeks to try to put this program together. So go ahead.
Well, first off, and thank you, Mayor. Let me first thank you for the opportunity to be on the show with you today and to talk to your residents. But first, I want to say thank you to you personally for your friendship, for all the work you're doing in the Tampa Bay region, for the work you're doing in particular for the residents of your great city. I felt fortunate to be able to call Bob Buckhorn, my friend. I feel fortunate to be able to call you, my friend, also. And I think it works best for our region when the mayors of St. Pete and Tampa get along, when we work together, when we try and do what's best for our region. And I really appreciate the fact that since day one, the day you were sworn and even before you were sworn, we've had that relationship, and I greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, same here.
The Fighting Chance Fund, we in St. Petersburg, our small businesses, our locally owned independents are really what give our city its character and its feel and that vibe that makes St. Pete special. And so we were really, as an administration, we're really concerned when we saw the shutdowns starting is what's this going to do to what St. Pete has been, and how are we going to make sure that when we get on the other side of the peak, when we flatten the curve, when we start trying to reopen, that those great small businesses are still around. Then we got notice and information that we were going to get some of our FEMA money back sooner than we had anticipated. Normally, it takes forever to get your FEMA money. And so we found out we had about $6.8 million that was going to be coming back to us. And we thought, well, what better way to put those dollars, that we spent when we were dealing with a crisis into the hands of people who are dealing with crisis themselves. And that's our business community and our employees who work for those businesses. And, we knew we weren't going to have, as you and I have both talked about, we don't have enough money between our cities to pay for all of our businesses in our cities, to help every one of them. And it kills us because we want to help every one of them. But we can't. So we tried to look at our universe and say, how do we help as many as we can? And how do we make sure that those we say we're going to be able to help, we actually have the resources to help? So we narrowed it down to really 4 categories. And these were the businesses that got impacted first: your bars, your restaurants, your retail, and your personal services. And we also said you got to be in St. Pete, you have to be owned by someone, or at least 50% of the ownership of that business has to live in St. Pete. And if you've got 25 employees or less, then you qualify for our program, as long as you've been in existence for at least a year. And for those businesses, we figure we can help them with about $5,000, and we think we can hit about 800 to 900 businesses that we're going to be able to assist. For the people working in those businesses, we thought it was about 3,000 employees that we'd be able to help with about $500 of assistance. And the hope was kind of like what you're hoping, is that this is a bridge, that this is at least going to help them get by until, the federal dollars that we're out there, and we hope they're going to do another round and will be out there, can really provide much more in the form of resources than our 2 cities have gotten. Maybe if we're lucky, we'll get a 4th round of stimulus dollars that'll come directly to our cities that would allow us to do even more. But that's what the whole goal behind the Fighting Chance program was. And it is in addition to anything they receive from the state or federal government.
Yeah, and that, it really is difficult because you want to be able to help everyone in need. But, and then you really don't understand until you actually see, you can hear numbers, but until you see people, I went out to the Feeding Tampa Bay giveaway at HCC on Saturday morning a week ago, and to see the number of cars lined up there really is, it's heartbreaking, but it opens your eyes to the need. And then the fact that we thought that we would be taking these applications for a week, and we got over 10,000 in a day and a half. So the need is out there, and I'm with you hoping that we're able to get some of this money that's coming through. We just had our emergency policy group meeting at 1:30 today, and the county is getting the first round of the CARES money, and it's to be used to help those in need, and 256 million. So there's hope, there's hope, and I'm sure in Pinellas County you'll be getting that as well. But I said, can we get a little bit of that for our One Tampa program to help those individuals? Because a lot of, as you and I talked before the program, before we started here, a third of the people that called in for the relief actually lived in the county, although they thought they were living in the city. So we're all in this together, and I sure appreciate the working relationship that we have, and with Clearwater as well. As you and I and the prior mayor of Clearwater have discussed many times, that we're so much stronger together as the Tampa Bay area. If somebody comes to open a business in St. Pete, you can say, hey, you get Clearwater and Tampa.
That's right.
In the deal. So it really is wonderful to be working together. Now let's talk a little bit about the differences in Tampa and St. Petersburg. You've had to tighten some of the closures in your public spaces. What led to that, and how do you feel that your citizens are abiding by some of these rules?
Overall, the residents have been doing a really good job. We just had, some pockets where there's been challenges. We had tried to leave our parks open, and included with that was tennis courts and pickleball courts and things of that sort. And, weekend after weekend, we were getting phone calls. Our police officers were having to respond. We were getting emails of people who were driving by and seeing the courts filled with people that were actually playing and those waiting to play. Yeah. And so we got to a point where, every week I was saying the same thing: please, social distance, practice social distancing, stay at home as much as you can. And we just weren't seeing it happen to the degree we wanted. So we went ahead and we closed those courts. The other issue that we've had is in the parks themselves. We've had a lot of folks who will go in there and they'll start, playing football or soccer, or we've had, we took our volleyball nets down, and I drove by a park and I saw a volleyball net up, and they brought their own net and strung it up. And
BYON.
That's right. And so, we've had to make it very clear that, organized activities, organized sporting activities in particular, we just can't have that, because you just can't do it and social distance appropriately the entire time you're doing it. And the quicker, as you know, and I know you're telling your residents the same thing, the quicker we do this, the better off we're going to be in the long run, and the quicker we can get out of doing this.
Yeah, without a doubt. And same with us, we closed down the parks and then left open like 6 trails where people could run, bike, and 2 of those are, one's Bayshore Boulevard and the others are Riverwalk. And so law enforcement has to monitor those on a regular basis. And right. I keep reminding and asking and sometimes pleading with individuals, if you're going to exercise, please try to do it in your own neighborhood, because you don't want to close these things down. People have enough restrictions already. And to your point, the vast majority of people are doing what we're asking them to do. And a lot of times, I'm sure same in your city, it's the younger kids, the ones that are invincible, like you and I were when we were young. But what they fail to realize is that they can be asymptomatic and take it back into the house where those in their home can least afford to get it. And that, as we've seen, had the benefit of learning from some of the other cities, is the disproportionate impact in our brown and Black communities. Yeah. You have multi-generational living quite often, and that's where you have, you can have groups of young people go back into these homes to the elderly or those that have health concerns. So very, very important, and we're trying our best to get everybody to take it seriously, because unfortunately, this being silent in so many cases, that by the time you realize what you've done, it's too late.
Too late.
And so that's what we're trying to get out through a series of PSAs and just all kinds of creative ways that we can get that information out, especially to the young kids, because they just think they're invincible, including my two young kids. So what has affected the way that your city delivers services to their community?
Yeah, so we've, we used to have, if you got a parking ticket, if you wanted to pay your utility bill, we used to have walk-in services. We've gone online or via phone for all of those. The majority of our staff are telecommuting. Certainly everyone who can telecommute is telecommuting. There are some jobs that you just cannot do that, and they are essential services. And so we've even bared those down to the minimum. So for example, our water resources department, who oftentimes is, if there's a leak in a pipe, or if people throw those disposable wipes down and we get a plug, which don't do that, folks.
Cost
No
us millions
disposable
of
wipes.
dollars. I know.
That's right.
Who would have thought in your lifetime that would be a huge concern of yours?
You know what? So we've tried to limit the work that those folks are doing to emergencies only, so that we can keep them on a rotating basis, so they're not always on, and social distance even for them to the greatest degree that is possible. And it's a challenge for some of the positions that we have in our cities. It's hard for people to do their job and keep that distance. So we're doing everything we can to get them to do that, to make sure that they're not working every single day that they have some rotations where they're on a week, they're off a week.
Okay.
And it's really the bare minimum that we need to be able to continue to perform the services that our residents expect, but do it in a way that's safe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, so same for us, our essential workers out there, like you say, in water, wastewater, the things that have to happen. And we actually were able to order cloth masks for all of our employees. And so those that are the essential ones out there on the front lines, we were able to get a couple of those for each of our workers. And we've implemented that program. And then also with thermometers, to be able to take the temperature of
Right.
individuals, places solid waste, those kind of where you have hundreds of individuals coming in, law enforcement, all of our first responders, paramedics, firefighters. So that's very important. And then the repurposing of individuals too. So Parks and Recreation, we actually had our Parks and Recreation, a group of individuals started making the cloth masks.
Wow.
And we got a lot of volunteers from the community too. And then one of the things that I thought was a great initiative, we have two parks that service the elderly in our community. And so as they were repurposed, the parks employees actually called everyone that's on the roster every day to check in on them and just have a conversation, so that that they're not isolated, because it really is a huge social aspect of the elderly population's day. And then some of our inspections too, if we can do them through video, it's something we were looking at before, but sort of sped that program along. So if you're doing a home project and you can actually do a video inspection and walk the inspector through that through FaceTime or Zoom or something like that. We also, I know you continued with all of your construction projects. That's huge employment. They have the ability to 6 foot separate. And, a point you brought up that I hadn't thought of was drawing all of those in before we get into hurricane season. We don't want that to be a bigger make the problem even worse when a storm comes through. So Carol Post from our Development and Economic Opportunity implemented a program where we have a medical officer, and we have individuals that go around and spot check all of those locations, take photographs, make sure they're staying 6 foot away. They have hand washing stations. They are taking the temperature of everyone before they come on, so that we're trying to do what we can to keep those construction sites safe too. So a lot of great ideas, a lot of great initiatives. One of my favorite sayings is that my best original ideas come from other people. So to that end, let's talk about the benefit. You and I both had the honor of being included in the Bloomberg Harvard Leadership group this year. And 41 mayors from around the world. And so that's been a huge benefit for me. And then being a member of the U.S. Conference of Mayors and being able to be on those calls. So, and with that said, you get to participate in the Thursday meetings. I have an EPG meeting, so I don't get to participate in that Bloomberg Harvard. And they basically walk you through and sort of group think the response to this virus in your particular city. So talk a little bit about the impact that participating in both of those organizations have had on your ability to lead your city.
Yeah, it's been phenomenal. I think I'm like you. I feel very fortunate and honored to have been selected as one of those 41 mayors from around the country to have had the opportunity to participate in that. And the resources, it's really, to me, the resources it opens up for us, from professors from Harvard that we get to hear from, to experts from facilities like Johns Hopkins, to last week on the call, Bill Gates was on the call. The week before that was President Obama. The week before that was President George W. Bush. The week before that was President Clinton.
Great, and I'm on an EPG call. Great.
So it's we get to hear from some of the brightest minds in the country. And then this last session, for example, talked a lot about starting to reopen and what does that look like and what are some of the things you ought to consider. And then so we don't even not only get to hear from the experts, but then we get to hear from our colleagues.
Yeah.
And I still remember the first call we had. Jenny Durkin, the mayor of Seattle, was on that call and telling us, with her city being really the first to face this in a big way and what she was going through. Yeah. And really, some of the things I heard from her, raised some warning signs to me of, are we looking at this? We need to start looking at this. And I think that's the most impactful thing is, as smart as we all like to think we are, there are a lot of ideas we might not have thought about, somebody else did, and we get the benefit of what they've already thought of that we can then steal and scale it to our community and make it work back home. So I think it's been an incredible resource.
Yeah, it really has. And that call and then a subsequent call where I talked to London Breed from San Francisco that's in our class. And, each of the mayors were, if you had one piece of advice, it was shut your community down as quick as you can. Get, whatever it is. First, it was just shelter at home, and then it basically turned into safer at home. But that was the sort of the reverberating mantra there, is that's what you have to do in order to protect your community. That's and right. We were fortunate to be able to learn from that. I think London was really courageous in shutting that city down really before it got there. So I can't imagine the pressure that she was under, but they haven't seen it. They haven't seen it explode in her community or many others that were able to shut down very, very quickly. So let's see what else we have on here. So let's talk about, we were talking about this earlier before the program as well, about states that are going to look to open up quickly. And I believe that Florida is going to be on there. If you go down in the number, the size of the states, you've got New York, you've got California, and then you have Florida. And so what do you feel? Give me your thoughts on that, on the reopening and that balance of watching out for our community's health and well-being, which is our foremost duty, and then bringing our cities back up on their feet economically, which is an incredible concern for all of us.
The challenge, I think, is that we as mayors face is we know, because we see it every day, the economic impact that this is having, as we've been talking about with your plan and with my plan to try and help our businesses, because we know how much they're hurting. And so, inside, we want to do that right away. But as you were just saying, our most important job is keeping our residents safe. And so how do we find that that balance and what does it look like. And I think we're going to be looking at a couple things that we want to see. We want to see for like 14 consecutive days where we're not seeing an increase in cases. If anything, we're seeing a decrease in cases. That I think is really important. We want to see hospitalizations go down. We want to know that there's ample hospital beds if there is another surge that does happen. That second wave comes, that we've got the beds for it and the PPEs for it. That we've got testing and adequate testing, and that there's contract tracing.
Yes.
I think if those things are in place, it would make me a whole lot more comfortable. What I continue to tell people is, if we rush to this and it comes back, it's going to be that much worse. I mean, and that's what other countries have seen happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's worse from a health standpoint, and it's worse economically.
Yeah.
And I would rather us take a little longer. We're going to hurt a little bit more in the short term, but in the long term, we're going to be better off.
Right.
And it's hard to get people that are living with this to understand that. But I think that's kind of what I'm hoping for. And we're, I'm hoping that, and certainly you and I are going to talk about our plans. I know my plan is to talk a lot with Pinellas County, because I want to be on the same page as my county.
Yes.
And it would be nice to see our two counties on the same page as we go forward in this too, because I think it works better for all of us if that happens.
Yeah, I do too. I think that's very, very important. And one of the things we have to do is test more. We have tested just barely over 1% of the population in the state. So you can't make decisions off of a lack of data like that. So we do need to ramp up the testing, and I'm very glad to see the governor ramp that up. We're getting ready to open 3 more sites in Hillsborough County, and in Tampa in particular, it's going to be in East Tampa over in Lee Davis Center. So we'll be in a predominantly African-American community have access to that testing site. So I think that's critically important. I also think that the antibody testing, like we said before, if we can come in and find, as is being predicted, that large numbers of individuals have had this virus and had no idea that they had it. So if we can identify those individuals and get them back out safely in the workforce. And then also, I firmly believe that the facial covering, if we can get that to be our new normal and have individuals wearing them, there you go, I love it, wearing that face covering. And that would really, really stop the spread of this. But I hope that from a state position that our leaders listen to the science before anything else. Because if we go out too quickly and we end up further back than where we started, I mean, can you imagine what that would do? We think we've been knocked to our knees now. And I just hope and pray that, we're not going to be used as the canary in the coal mine here. So I agree too that as a region, we should go about this in a very thoughtful and practical manner, doing what we can to slowly open our businesses and our community back up. Now, I think I got you beat a little bit. I got one with dots on it, and then I've got one with little dog bones too. I try to get Dessa to wear it. She won't have any part of that. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting because, as I've said too, we're in uncharted waters here. This isn't a hurricane. This isn't, something that we've experienced before. And in most emergencies throughout our country, if we go through it, the cavalry comes in and helps us out. Everybody's in the same position. So there is no cavalry. You're pretty much on your own here. So let's talk about the sports teams and how great they've been I got to tell you this story too. Now, I always tell people I'm not one to gossip, so you didn't hear this from me, but our parks are closed down. And so a lot of our park staff, they patrol around just to make sure that their people aren't in there with contact sports and things. and saw an individual working out in one of our downtown parks, and she went over to tell him that it was closed and it was Tom Brady. So,
Oh my goodness.
well, there you go.
Wow.
So he has been cited. So let's talk about how wonderful our sports teams are to step up and help out in all times of need, really.
Yeah, and they really do. Uh, I'm letting the cat out of the bag on this last one, probably before my staff has even had a chance to announce it publicly. But we had already had a commitment from early from the Lightning, Jeff and Penny Vinnick, and from the Glazers and the Buccaneers. And I just received a call from Brian Ald and the Rays, and they are also in for our fund, as they have been. All three of them have been for your fund. It really says a lot about the sports teams and how much they care about the communities.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to joke with Brian and the Rays sometimes that I felt like they weren't letting the public know enough about everything that they do in the St. Petersburg and Tampa Bay area. And so, it says a lot, and it really is uplifting to know that these folks care so much about what's happening, and you're even seeing that the athletes get involved.
Yeah.
You mentioned Tom Brady, and the guy just moves here, just becomes a part of this community, and what he's doing for feeding Tampa Bay already. And I mean, it's
it is really wonderful.
Yeah, it really is.
And one of the things too, Darcy Glazier, she has women's and girls flag football that runs the largest group of women athletes in the entire United States, and it's like, wow, nobody knows about it except the girls and their families that are involved in that. And the same thing with Jeff and Penny Vinnick. No matter what the situation is, they're always there helping out. And the same thing with Stu and Brian over at the Rays.
Yep.
People don't know what they do in the community. And then you think about it on top of their generosity, they're hurting right now. Everybody's basically been canceled. So hopefully football will be off and we won't have our Super Bowl interrupted, but really is wonderful. So really appreciate that. Now let's see, I think we're down to, so here we have some, here's another one. Are you guys doing anything to bring your community together over there in St. Petersburg? We're doing like little chalk paintings on the sidewalks, thanking everybody. And then we have our karaoke dance, which everybody's very happy that I'm not out there dancing. But anyway, it seems to bring, those kind of things that you can really bring the community together.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you see it spotlighted on the news a lot where, like in New York, for example, at 7 o'clock every night, everybody goes out and cheers for the healthcare workers. And, I've seen people driving down the streets with signs on their cars and trying to spread the word throughout the community that, that we are all in this thing together, and we really do have to support each other. And actually, I appreciate the opportunity to also make a mention of this, as we talk, and everybody does talk a lot about our healthcare workers, and what they are doing right now is really remarkable. And everybody's familiar with our first responders, our police and fire. But you mentioned, and I've also mentioned briefly, our public works folks. Yeah. And, I think sometimes they get forgotten too, for the people that, make sure that we've got clean water to drink, and that when we, as I always love to tell the kids, when you push that handle down, that stuff goes away. Yeah. Somebody's working hard to make sure that happens every day, and that, our trash and our recycling material gets picked up, and so our sanitation workers, and there's just so many city workers across the board that people don't think about the impact of what they do every day to make a city function, and as seamless as it has. And these people are all working right now and still doing their jobs, and they have the same fears that that everyone else has. Are they going to get sick and coming to work, and are they going to bring something home that they didn't plan on bringing home to their family? So I think it's important to give a shout out to those folks too. And that every time that we're cheering for our healthcare workers and our first responders, let's also cheer for those forgotten city employees.
Yeah, amen, amen, because they do make it go round. And people, I tell everybody that they provide those services in such a stellar manner that people take them for granted.
Yeah.
All you have to do is turn on that faucet and you have great water that comes out. And like
That's
you
right.
said, push the handle and it all goes away. So it really is amazing. So it's nice. And I think that, our communities are so strong that this is difficult. It's something that's unprecedented for us all. But I truly believe that we're going to come out of this much, much stronger community that really has a focus on what's important in life. So it's something that hopefully we'll be able to come out from under a lot sooner than later. So this is from Charlie Frago.
Okay.
Pinellas leaders have acted with a unified voice for the most part on safer at home measures, while Hillsborough leaders disagreed initially on Mayor Castor's call for a safer at home order, and last week scraped a curfew and declined to act on Castor's call for mandatory face coverings in public. Why do you think Pinellas has been more unified in its response than Hillsborough?
Well,
far away.
Yeah, no, I think, obviously we have 24 municipalities, first off in Pinellas County. So, it's to look like we're getting along and working together better is in some ways ironic. I think the county administrator, Barry Burton, has certainly got his hands full trying to keep 24 children in line.
Yeah.
And we're not always going to agree 100%. I went in front of the county commission and I talked about wanting to see them go a little further than they did, and ultimately they ended up doing what they felt was best for the county. But you get past that. Once you do that, then it's like, okay, this is where we're at. Let's work together in accomplishing this. And I think it's probably the same thing for you there in Hillsborough. Is it's important for us to be able to express what we feel is what we'd like to see happen. Each of us is going to make the decisions on what we think is best for our community. Sometimes it aligns perfectly. Sometimes it aligns pretty good. And most of the time it's pretty good, and sometimes it is perfect. But the bottom line is we are all working together still. So I know that you and I both had times where we're frustrated. I'm sure they felt the same way about us, but ultimately we're doing what we think is best for our residents.
Right. And I think that sums it up beautifully, is that ultimately everyone is passionately fighting for the best interests of their community. So I think that's very good. So this is from Brianna Ardondo from Fox 13, and she says, what preparations are underway to reopen the state and local economies? Do you think enough has been done so far based on the COVID numbers you've seen in Tampa and St. Pete? What else can we do, if anything?
So I'm going to let you answer that one first.
Yeah, well, I think we've really answered that question in that we need more testing.
Yep.
Hopefully, we'll be able to take delivery of these antibody testing kits, and we'll be able to start doing that in large numbers. And so once I feel that we actually have some reasonable numbers, something above 1%, that we can start making some decisions. I truly believe that face coverings are going to be a part of anything moving forward, and will allow us to really open up some businesses quicker than we may have been able to otherwise. So I think that is our path forward. From what the president released in the opening of the economy, we have to get out of that gate in the beginning there with the 14 days of consistent, either a plateau in the number of cases or a downturn in those before we can really make any decisions on wide scale opening. And even if we said today, all right, city's wide open, we're still going to have to crawl. It's going to have to be that crawl, walk, run. So it's going to take a while, and I see it as something that's gradual. And as we stated before, as long as the decisions are thoughtful and practical, and we're looking at the health and well-being of our citizens first, and then the economy second, I think we'll be making the best decisions.
I think the only thing I would add to that is, and I think you said it really well, my big concern or fear, if you would, is whatever our governor decides to do, that we aren't preempted as local governments from taking action that might be different, for example, than say in the Panhandle, because our numbers are different. What's happening in our communities is different. I hope we're at least given that latitude and the recognition that the science in our community could be different than the science elsewhere. And so at least as we come out of this, we have that flexibility.
Right, and that's a great point. What happens in South Florida, isn't the rules for South Florida are not going to be applicable for the Panhandle. And even if you go down to cities, the city of Tampa has twice the density of the county, and so all of those factors need to be taken into consideration. I think it probably boils down to there is no one size fits all.
Right.
Good. Any other questions from?
Yeah, I have a few more. From Charlie Frego, one. Did you ask Senator Rubio today for any special or specific assistance for the city of Tampa?
Yes, I did. And I know that Mayor Kriseman has done the same thing in these next rounds of funding. With the CARES Act, it was specific to states and then locales with $500,000 or more. If you go back to the last census, there's only 33 cities in the United States that fit those parameters. And so what we are asking is that they lower that number, 50,000, I believe, is what is being discussed now, so that some of that funding can come directly to the cities. We can get it quicker, and then the cities, deserve to have some of that funding because we have been knocked to our knees as well. Right now, as it stands, it goes to the state and the counties, and then any city over 500,000, which I believe is Jacksonville, and that's because it's incorporated with the county city combination. So yes, we did, and I was very encouraged by conversations with Congresswoman Kathy Castor and discussions with Senator Rick Scott and discussion with Marco Rubio this morning.
The next question comes from Josh Solomon from Tampa Bay Times. We're within 10 days of the state shutdown being lifted unless extended by the governor. Should the city and/or county remain under local shutdown after that?
I say yes. I don't think that we're going to see enough results from testing or any other information that we can actually make positive decisions on in 10 days. Right?
I agree. We haven't had 4 consecutive days yet where we've seen a flattening and a decrease, and so add 10 to that. If we haven't had 4, we're not going to get to that 14.
Yeah, there you go.
And
He's always a math expert.
One more question from Josh Solomon. Have you spoken to Governor DeSantis personally during the crisis?
I have not.
I have not either.
All right, that's it. All right, thank you so much, Rick. And listen to all of our viewers. Remember, please, please, please stay home as much as you can. Only go out for essential needs. And if you do that, think about the drive up. A lot of individuals, that's right, wear that mask. A lot of companies are providing parking lot service. You call ahead and order. You can do it at Home Depot, Target's getting ready to put it in place, Publix, Walmart. You can order and you can drive up and they'll put your products in your trunk. So please try to limit your contact with anybody. Wear facial coverings whenever you're out. There are plenty of stores that are making those now, making them available. And then you can go online and have a DIY. You can make them yourself as well. So facial coverings, wherever you're at, remember to stay 6 feet away. Wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. And if you haven't already, text Tampa Ready or Tampa Lista to 888-777 for real-time information on the virus in English and Spanish. And then Tampa Biz for our small businesses to 888-777. Remember, if you want to get tested for the virus, the parameters for that have really been decreased. In essence, all you have to have are the symptoms of the virus, fever, cough, whatever it is. You can call 813-272-5900, 813-272-5900. Go get tested. We have testing sites, Raymond James Stadium, opening up in East Tampa at the Lee Davis Center. The hospitals are all doing testing. Your private provider is more than likely doing testing. So go out and get those tests. Remember, dance tonight and send your pictures to @City of Tampa, pictures and videos to #HappyAtHomeTPA. Get out there and dance like nobody's watching. You guys have a wonderful day. We'll talk to you again tomorrow at 4:30. Thank you so much, Rick. Really appreciate it. It's great spending time with you, and I appreciate your friendship, and I appreciate you being a sounding board too. Thanks.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Take care.